Hi, Catherine. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
We're delighted to have you. Who is this that you have on your lap here?
This is, well, he's going to take a nap right now. This is Tucker, my dog. He is the cover boy of my book.
He's such a handsome boy.
He is indeed, and he's featured throughout the book. And perhaps he might have transmitted some of the book to me via ESP. That is still out with the judges. But.
I'm so delighted to have you here. I jumped at the opportunity to have you on this show. I actually read the inspired movie book, A Dog's Purpose. And I basically cried through the entire movie, like start to finish.
I know. Sorry about that. We do that to people.
And I think you guys did such a good job of encompassing in that movie. And also you did in this new book that you have out, just what it means for them to be a sentient being in our lives and how connected and how wise and just beautiful that relationship is to unfold in our human experience. So I'm really grateful you guys put all of this together and that it's out in the world.
Well, it sounds simple, but it's called A Dog's Purpose because they're very purposeful animals. Anyone that's spent even 2 minutes with a dog knows that they're not just randomly moving through the world. And really, they co-evolved with us to be that we are their purpose. So A Dog's Purpose has a very profound message for people, which is partly what we owe them for their love and their unconditional loyalty and all of the ways that they want to be companion animals to us. And then my book, I'm Still Here, A Dog's Purpose Forever, just carries that story farther because in my book, it's being told to you by an angel dog who really wants you to know that they still have a purpose. They're still here, but they're also there over the Rainbow Bridge with all the souls you've loved. So it's just a continuation of the story that we started, or that my husband Bruce started with the novel A Dog's Purpose, and then we co-wrote the film A Dog's Purpose. And so this is the next step.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about your book, I'm Still Here, A Dog's Purpose Forever. So it's a beautiful book to just open up and look at with the illustrations by I forget what his name was.
His name is Seth Taylor.
Yes, Seth did these beautiful
watercolor painting.
I mean, just stunning, just very stunning. But let's talk about the genesis and the intention of this book when you started putting it together and thinking about putting these images together. How did that sort of all unfold for you?
Well, actually, my husband, W. Bruce Cameron, the author of the original novel, A Dog's Purpose, asked me to write this book. This is a book for grown-ups, although you could read it to a child. It's a graphic book, and the art is pretty sophisticated. It's watercolor painting, but we both felt that there was no book out there that you could give to someone who had just lost a dog. So the idea of a companion gift book to the original A Dog's Purpose really made sense. And because I write free verse poetry and because it's basically all the dog talking dialogue, and that's what I've been writing in the movies, he thought that I would do a good job of it. And, there are books out there that are about grief. This is not a book about grief. And those books are not coming to you from the point of view of the creature that you've lost. The dog in this book is very joyful. And, he says things like, I do know that dogs don't live as long as people. And in his opinion, that's a good thing because, as he says, we go first and we can show you that it's no big deal. It's a very eternal perspective that the dog has because just like the dog in the movie A Dog's Purpose, he comes back or he meets you there, he understands that this is a circular, eternal thing, life, after life.
Yeah, I wondered when you talk about losing Ellie in some of your biography work and other
Yeah.
interviews and things like that. I wondered how much of Ellie, your past dog, was in part of this book as well. And did you feel her presence throughout this creative process as well?
You must be psychic. Yes, so much. So Ellie was a crazy Doberman. I'd never had a dog as a grown up, and I got a dog, and she passed rather young, and it rocked me the way it rocks everyone. But I had never experienced that before, and not long after that, I met my husband. Well, he's my boyfriend at the time, Bruce, and we were starting to get serious, whatever that means. Where it stops being fun and you get serious. No, it was fun. But I told him that I could never have another dog. And he comes from a dog crazy family where his dad, who was a surgeon, cooked gourmet meals for the dog. Like there was a very dog centric family, and that was not going to work for him. So we were on a car ride in Northern California, and he said, "I want to tell you a story. I just got this idea for a story that I think is going to change your mind about that." I'm like, okay. In the car, tell me a story. And this has never happened before or since. He's published 34 books, but this has never happened before or since, where the whole story just dropped into his head like a download, like a celestial download, if you will. And he talked for an hour and a half, and he told me this story of a dog who reincarnates and remembers all of his lives and his people and comes back to save his original boy. And it was an astonishing experience. I've never had anything like that happen to me. And of course I was crying, and I said, "Oh my God, that I get it. I understand what you're trying to tell me, but that what you just told me, that's a beautiful story. You have to write that as a book." And so, actually, I said to him, "I'm so worried it was so perfect. I think you need to record it," because he always had a little recorder with him. And so he told it again. Another hour and a half went by, and it was as perfect. It was like it was his one-man show that he was doing on Broadway or something. It just came out, the same story again, and that's what became A Dog's Purpose. He always says she liked the story so much she married me.
Well, it's a good reason to get married. I also wonder too, as a comedian and as an actress, like how much did you find humor in your relationship with your dog, your past dog and your current dog, and how did that translate into telling that story in a somewhat, at moments comical way?
Thank you for realizing the book is funny. It is funny. The dog is hilarious. Tucker, who you saw for the 2 minutes he was awake, is hilarious. He's a senior dog. He has a lot of napping to do. But the dog talks about how words are not barks, and words are very important, and probably the most important word is chicken. He has a lot to say about chicken. His least favorite word is bath. Tucker despises bath. And it's funny because in the book, I'm a film director, and I did this book like it was a storyboard. So I took thousands of photographs, both of Tucker, who plays the angel dog, who's telling you the story, and I'm still here, A Dog's Purpose Forever, but also just dogs everywhere. We live in a very dog-centric area of Southern California, and so I was constantly taking pictures of dogs, but there's a whole sequence in the book that involves the bath, and Tucker had to have a really long bath while I shot these photos, and he was just apoplectic over it. He was so upset. We got a lot of cheese out of it. He mentions cheese a lot. Cheese is also important. And so I mean, dogs they're funny. They like to do stuff to be funny. They like to do anything that pleases us and brings us joy. They feel that's their purpose. So I would say the book is more funny than it is sad or touching, although it is touching because it's about a huge topic,
Yeah. I think when we were young, I grew up in a family that didn't like dogs, and my parents did allow us to have one dog, but we were never allowed to kind of get too close to that dog. And he lived outside and, had his house and everything. And then it wasn't until I was an adult and I was able to, have my own dog for the first time that I really understood how much personality dogs have, like of their own. And it's just so beautiful and and wonderful to experience that for the first time. I kind of wanted to ask you in terms of like, marrying the idea of the grief and the love and the humor that dogs give us. Like, there's something so beautiful about experiencing the unconditional love of a dog, and losing that unconditional love, I think, creates its own sort of layer of grief that is indescribable, because sometimes when our parents die, our siblings die, we have, grudges and like things we haven't forgiven. And with our dogs, it's like, it's just love. Our animals, I won't keep it to just dogs, but it's just animals. And I wondered if you could say something about the grief associated with unconditional love and how you actually navigate that as a human being.
That is such a good question. I think it goes back to the title of the book, I'm Still Here. A dog forever. It is the biggest message of the book, which is that love is still here. And that when you open yourself up to realizing that this relationship is eternal, and then opening yourself up to receiving that same love from where their soul is now, that it also allows you, sorry, I got a frog in my throat. It also allows you to hear what the dog wants to say to you, which is that they want you to open your heart again. Whether it's, excuse me, whether it's adopting another dog, or just when you walk down the street, being open to, because if you're a dog person and you're walking down the street and you're like, oh my God, that dog will come to you. And then you will once again feel that rush of the unconditional love that they have. In the book, the dog says, I think this is one of the most profound things that he says, all dog souls are different, but they are all good. And so in that transition period after you've lost a dog, if the first thing you can do is to just, when you see that happy dog coming down the street to you, open yourself to that. That is where the healing process, I think, begins. And that can happen the day you lose your dog. You know what I mean? It's just whenever you're willing to access that pipeline of unconditional love that they all have. And then maybe as you start to heal, you open yourself up to letting another dog into your home.
I think that idea of healing from one dog to the next, like, is such a profound experience for us to have. I definitely went through it when I lost my last dog, and I was like you, I was like devastated. I mean, there's no words for that when that happens, but like you said, having that opening and I think that vulnerability to sort of try again, like very much different than a breakup or like a lost loved one, but allowing yourself the freedom to be loved again by an animal is such a beautiful experience. And I really appreciate you saying that.
Well, Temple Grandin, who is someone both my husband and I admire greatly, who loved A Dog's Purpose. She still talks about it. 10 years later, she did an interview in the New York Times and she was talking about it. She wrote a book called Animals Make Us Human.
Yes.
And I think that is so true. And I think that as hard as it is that they live shorter lives than we do, it is purposeful and it is profound, and they do teach us. And if we allow ourselves to move through that grief, to love them so much, to feel their loss, and then to reconnect again with other animals, that's a huge part of why we're here, is to have that experience, and they are our soul guides in that experience. So it's hard. I'm not saying it isn't hard, but life is hard and worth it, right?
And it's transformative as well, as what you're talking about, is that transformative experience. We are not the same person once we have that love and that loss, and then we find love again through another animal. And I think hearkening it back to Temple Grandin, she's wonderful in reminding us that our humanity exists within this shared experience with these animals is so true.
Yeah, and if you want to get out of this life what you came for, lots of things are hard. Having children is hard. Having relationships is hard. Work is hard. That's why they call it work. It's all hard, but it's all purposeful and it's all meaningful. If you want to shut yourself in a box and never experience things that are hard, you can do that, but you've really wasted the magnificent opportunity of being on Earth and being human.
Yeah, so the beauty and the horror.
Yeah. So, and I think that this relationship with an animal, any animal, as you point out, but specifically for me, it's been dogs, although I've had cats. It's part of what we came here to do, part of why we're here, and so embracing it joyfully, as my angel dog narrator, and I'm still here, A Dog's Purpose Forever does, is the whole point. It really is. It's funny. This is a little gift book. It's a little $20 gift book that is beautiful and pretty, and you could give it to someone to let them know you love them and you're thinking about them at this time. But it's actually got a bigger message about our lives and how to live them. And the dog is really wise. He's really smart.
Well, that's a perfect segue to my next question, because I do feel like there was a lot of wisdom in there. And in my experience, I always feel like my animals are my Zen masters. Like, I learned so much about myself and my own experience and how to treat others and how to be connected to nature and how to, stay present in myself. Like, there's so many things my animals teach me over the years and currently. So I was wondering, in terms of like our animals being little Zen masters and the wisdom that's conveyed in this book from the dog's perspective, like what were one or two or three pieces of wisdom that you felt were really important for the reader to have conveyed to them from this perspective?
I think the most important one is what the dog has to say about fear. Because, the last line of the movie, A Dog's Purpose, is the dog saying, "Be here now." Be here now. So simple, right? So difficult, so hard to do. I'm here now with you, but I'm also thinking about, why did I get a frog in my throat? Oh my God, that was so annoying. It's going to be annoying on that podcast. All the things that we drag into our experiences. And the dog talks about fear. He says dogs feel fear. He said, we fear baths, but then once you're in the bath, it's like, well, the bath isn't going to last forever. And then, it'll be over. And he said, life is more about good dog than it is about bath, So it's like, he also says fear. He thinks of fear like a predator. He says fear chases away joy. Fear chases away love. And he's so right. How much of our lives do we miss when we're worried about money and our health and, politics, all these things that we're fearful about and mostly can't do anything about. So why not just feel joy? Why not just choose to feel joy and love? They do it naturally. That's why they're teachers. I don't think Tucker has to spend a lot of time saying, "I'm not going to think about taxes." He doesn't think about taxes. And even things that he doesn't like does he bath? Bath is for him, and it happens once a week, and he doesn't like it. But he doesn't spend any of his day thinking about it. It isn't until I pick him up and take off the collar and start to carry him up the stairs and put him in the tub that he's like, oh, bath. And then, 10 minutes later, it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's so interesting how the joy element of it, because I think as human beings, we're so negatively biased in general. And not that I want to say, like, let's positively bypass everything, but even when you see them entering a moment of fear, or even I would say like a moment of anger, they literally shake it off after it's done, and they're in the moment that next second, like it's gone. And we cling to our fears so much. And I love that you said that, because I think that's such an incredible lesson for people to remember. And I think in our current society, I think there's fear everywhere. Like, you could be afraid of absolutely everything and never leave your house, or never engage with people, or never love, like whatever those things are. I think it's a real act of courage to live with love and with joy. And if you can learn those lessons through your animals, like, what a beautiful experience to have.
Well, and also know that because we live in the beautiful thing that allows us to speak to each other today is also the thing that brings a lot of stuff into your day, and you are being marketed to with fear. Even leaving the obvious sort of areas where you're marketed to in fear, like politics and that sort of thing, you're being marketed to in fear every time you see an ad for makeup, because the fear is that you don't look good enough. So if you had this skincare product or this hair product or this, women especially, the focus of so much of how we're marketed to is fear. And in my book, the dog is just puzzled by that. Like, he says this in the book, we don't need words because we can smell emotions like happy or sad. And so we know what's going on with you. So we don't need words the way people do. But the way they communicate to us not to live in that fear is by example. Tucker, if we're going somewhere and it's obvious, I always make the joke, because like in the house I wear flip flops or slippers, but if I'm leaving, I'm wearing clicky shoes. It's like, ooh, clicky shoes, And so it means we're going for a car ride or we're going somewhere. It never occurs to Tucker not to be enthusiastic about wherever we're going. And I can say that a good 30% of the time we're going to the vet, because he's a senior dog and he doesn't like going to the vet. It doesn't matter. He is excited for the next segment. He is excited for whatever is next. And in writing I'm Still Here, A Dog's Purpose Forever, I really tried to listen to him. I write in an Eames chair and he sits at my feet, and I know he's going to be 13 in October. And I know that the day is coming where he'll leave. And I sort of thought, what would he say to me about that? What would he want me to know, to remember, to focus on when he's gone? What would he say to me? What would he say about our lives together? What would he say about my life to come? Both here and in eternity, in spirit, So I joke, he's on the cover and I call him my uncredited co-author, but it's kind of true, because in my imagination, and I've written 3 movies from the point of view of a dog, so I've played that character more than once. I just started thinking about what did he think were the most important things, and be here now. Fear chases away love and joy. Open your heart to the love of animals. All these things that are really good advice, not just when you've lost a dog, all the time.
Yes.
Good advice all the time.
Yes. Well, I kind of want to pivot here to the grief aspect of it and give some people who, like you said, this book is really, its intention is to really help people navigate that experience from a dog's perspective to one, let them know their dog is still there and helping them out and accessible to them in this grieving process. But when you think about the grief process of losing an animal, since you lost Ellie, and I don't know if you've lost other animals in the past,
Oh yeah.
but what, yeah, what has it taught you and how has it changed you as a person?
Well, my next door neighbor is named Franny, and she had a dog named Tilly. And Tucker and Tilly were the best of friends. And Tilly was a senior dog and eventually left us. And one of the messages that the dog in the book has is how much they appreciate when you help them cross over. They know we're doing it. They try to tell us when it's time, and they really appreciate it and are grateful. And so when Tilly left, Tucker and I went right over and just her just touching him in that grief was really important for her, for me, for Tucker. Tucker, could tell that Tilly was gone. And I think that those kind of real rituals are essential, and it's okay. I mean, there are people, I guess, I don't know any people like this, who are like, oh, it's just a dog, or, oh, why don't you get over it? Like, I really don't know or hang out with people like that because I can't understand it. They are family. They're family. And it is an eternal relationship, but the grief of ending the physical relationship is real and needs to be acknowledged. And it was funny, not funny maybe, but part of my vision for this book was I wanted it to be an object that could then celebrate a particular dog. So we made it so that it has in the front leaf this painting of footprints and paw prints in the sand. And those actually are my footprints and Tucker's paw prints because of the many photographs I took. But the idea is that you put a photo of your angel dog right here. You use little gold photo corners and mount that photograph right here so that the book becomes their book. So that every time you open it, you see that photograph and then you start to explore what the book has to say. And most authors won't tell you this. I'll be very happy if I'm still here. A Dog's Purpose Forever becomes the bathroom book that people have sitting on a little table by the toilet. And that in that, where you got a couple moments where you're not doing anything, you pick it up and just flip through to any page. And I think you'll find what you needed to hear that day, because pretty much it sounds like I'm bragging. I'm not. It's a very simple book, but pretty much on every page, I think if you randomly flipped to that page, you'd find something that would be helpful in your day, not just in getting over the grief of losing a dog, but in just being human in the world and how are you going to move through that day as a spiritual person?
Well, I kind of want to pivot here to the grief aspect of it and give some people who, like you said, this book is really, its intention is to really help people navigate that experience from a dog's perspective to one, let them know their dog is still there and helping them out and accessible to them in this grieving process. But when you think about the grief process of losing an animal, since you lost Ellie, and I don't know if you've lost other animals in the past.
Oh yeah.
But what has it taught you and how has it changed you as a person?
Well, my next door neighbor is named Franny, and she had a dog named Tilly. And Tucker and Tilly were the best of friends. And Tilly was a senior dog and eventually left us. And one of the messages that the dog in the book has is how much they appreciate when you help them cross over. They know we're doing it. They try to tell us when it's time, and they really appreciate it and are grateful. And so when Tilly left, Tucker and I went right over, and just her just touching him in that grief was really important for her, for me, for Tucker. Tucker, could tell that Tilly was gone. And I think that those kind of real rituals are essential, and it's okay. I mean, there are people, I guess, I don't know any people like this, who are like, oh, it's just a dog, or, oh, why don't you get over it? Like, I really don't know or hang out with people like that, because I can't understand it. They are family. They're family. And it is an eternal relationship, but the grief of ending the physical relationship is real and needs to be acknowledged. And it was funny, not funny maybe, but part of my vision for this book was I wanted it to be an object that could then celebrate a particular dog. So we made it so that it has in the front leaf this painting of footprints and paw prints in the sand. And those actually are my footprints and Tucker's paw prints, because of the many photographs I took. But the idea is that you put a photo of your angel dog right here. You use little gold photo corners and mount that photograph right here, so that the book becomes their book. So every time you open it, you see that photograph, and then you start to explore what the book has to say. And most authors won't tell you this. I'll be very happy if I'm still here. A Dog's Purpose Forever becomes the bathroom book that people have sitting on a little table by the toilet, and that in that, where you've got a couple moments where you're not doing anything, you pick it up and just flip through to any page. And I think you'll find what you needed to hear that day, because pretty much, it sounds like I'm bragging. I'm not. It's a very simple book, but pretty much on every page, I think if you randomly flipped to that page, you'd find something that would be helpful in your day, not just in getting over the grief of losing a dog, but in just being human in the world, and how are you going to move through that day as a spiritual person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's incredibly important to have the idea that this work is channeled through a being that is not here, or even Tucker as a co-creator, that because we often wonder, right? Like, we can communicate with our dogs in the physical world, and when they leave us, sometimes they can. I've definitely felt my dog after she passed away, but I wondered what she would say about our time. And I think that's why this book is so sweet, because it answers some of those questions, right, that we all have about our experience with these animals, and like, how much are they enjoying the experience of us being together? I think that's like such a big question. Like, I'm always like, have I taken my dog Penny on enough runs? Have I taken her to see enough things? Like, have I given her a good enough life? I think about those things all the time.
Well, in the book, the dog says you gave us the best life ever, always, because you do. And one of the things that the dog talks about in the book is how everyone who is over the bridge still wants to say hi, and how that they can do it with what the dog calls things with wings. That if there's a butterfly or a hummingbird or a dragonfly, my dad comes to me as a dragonfly, that is like, won't let go, really wants to be in your space, that you should consider that thing with wings is the soul of someone you've loved saying hello. And the dog says, say hello back. We love it.
Yeah. And also, I'm sure they love us thinking about them too. I think that's another element of it too. When our animals pass on, like I just like people that pass on. I think that there's that connection lives on with our idea of them in our minds and in our hearts. I don't know if you have anything else to say about that.
And I think they feel it. We have a very active social media community. The Dog's Purpose page on Facebook has got like 500,000 people or something. It's a lot of people, and people all the time, and we encourage this, post pictures of their angel dogs. And I always say, and I believe this with all my heart, that when you share a photo of that angel dog, that brings them close right there. That brings them right there. They feel that when you wanted someone to see that you're loving them and you're celebrating that eternal connection with them. So, we always welcome people sharing. We like it when you share photos of your dog that's alive too, of course. But we particularly celebrate it when people share that photo, because we believe that brings their spirit close right away.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you a personal question about your own life's purpose and how it's evolved over your lifetime, and where you see it and where you see it intersecting with this work now. I would love for you to walk us through, what you imagined your purpose as a young person, all of your life experiences, coalescing together, and then writing this book as the purpose of what dogs are doing here and finding purpose in that. I'm sure there's so many beautiful overlapping ideas and layers there. And I just really want to hear that story from your perspective.
Well, thank you. I'll try to make it brief. I've had a very...
No, we got time. We got time.
I've had a very eclectic career. I was an actor as a kid, and I love being an actor, and I'm still an actor. But then I was at the second... I took a side trip into opera. I'm also a singer. That isn't as much of a feature of my life anymore. But then I was at the Second City in Chicago, and I discovered improv, which I love, and informs pretty much everything else I've ever done, because if you think about it, kind of everything is improv. Writing is certainly improv. I'm a film director now, and that was a beautiful thing that really, I think a lot of people evolve to directing. They start as actors, and then they write, and then they become directors, and that was my path. Well, hello, Tucker. Are you getting comfortable? I hope you are. A lot of, really wonderful filmmakers started that way. And Greta Gerwig, my current favorite film director, started as an actress and a writer, and then became a director. And I guess the overall theme to all of it, not the side trips, but I think it's about being a storyteller. I think I have always had a deep desire to create stories that change people's lives. Does that sound overly ambitious? I think that's what I wanted to do since I was a tiny kid, is to and I've sat on airplanes and watched people watch A Dog's Purpose, because I can see the screen and the seats in front of me, and see how moving it is to them. But you know what? You said you had just watched it recently. It's also very funny. And thank God we had Josh Gad as the voice of that dog.
I love him.
He's so funny. And then when we made A Dog's Way Home and the voice was a woman, we had Bryce Dallas Howard, who's also really funny. And I think that's a huge part of the kind of storytelling I do, that even when I write a book about losing a dog, there's a lot of good jokes. The dog is very witty in this book. He has a lot of funny things to say. I mean, he has a whole run in the book where he goes on and on about dogs do tricks to make people happy, and sit is a trick, and it's unbelievably ridiculous. They just want you to sit. And, it goes on, and then he says, and if you think sit is bad, wait until you hear stay. Oh my God, stay. People repeat it. They go, stay, stay, stay. I guess because it's so awful, they can't believe they're even saying it. He's got all of these observations about the crazy things he thinks people want you to do. But all he's ever wanted is to make people happy. So good dogs do it. And he is a good dog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just remembering that part in the film where the one dog gets chained up into the yard. And I remember, like, every time I see an animal like that, it makes me, like, it brings me so much sadness and distress. And it was interesting to see that in the movie and how that was conveyed and how it was like the dog was eventually okay and all the things. And I think we hope that for all of them. But thank you for answering that question. I was really curious about how you felt your purpose was sort of, intersecting with all of these points in our lives, because we're so multidimensional. And as time moves on, we change and we transform and we take on new things. And then it adds so much color to the work that we do. So I can imagine, like, everything up until when you wrote this book is really a part of it too. There's little sprinkles of you all within that book and all of the iterations of yourself, in the same way a dog reincarnates over the course of the movie, right?
Yeah, and making these movies, I have to speak to that a little bit. I'm an actor and I love actors, and I love talking to actors and interacting with actors and acting with actors, but it's very different when your actor is a canine, and it's amazing, actually. The dog you were talking about in A Dog's Purpose, who gets chained in that yard, was played by a dog named Bolt, who I have always said was one of my favorite actors that was in any of our movies, and he was so talented. And I remember his trainer, Ray. I don't even know how they did this, because I trained Tucker to do some pretty simple things, and he works on camera. He's done a couple commercials, but then he's been in our films too. But Ray would say to Bolt, sad. Bolt, sad. And Bolt would be like, you want me sad? It was like crazy. I'm like, you can't say that to Ben Affleck. You can't be like, Ben, sad. And then he's all of a sudden sad. Like, I mean, he's a good actor, but needs a little while to warm up into it. You can't just yell at him sad and then have him be sad. But sharing a set and working with these animals. I mean, it's like if you're on a set with Brad Pitt, you can't make out with Brad Pitt between every shot, but you can make out with, it's just not. Everyone gets it.
You can try, but they might haul you off for harassment.
It's really not good manners. But we spend all these long days working with these dogs, and like Shelby, the dog who's the star of A Dog's Way Home. We rescued Shelby. We really wanted to make a movie where the star would be a rescue dog. She had been living in a landfill. Teresa Miller, who handled her for the film, turned this dog into a star. And but Shelby's like a friend of mine. Like, and Tucker loves Shelby, and they hang out, and she comes to parties at our house. So like it's that's a fun aspect of. You were asking me about my life path, which is too big for a podcast. I've just done too many things. But I'm blessed, and I know I'm blessed, that every time I started to imagine another avenue, another way that I might take my life's work into a direction, I've been so blessed just to have the doors open. I mean, I started to write this book, I'm Still Here, A Dog's Purpose Forever, in COVID. It was a good time for it, because all I was focusing on is what one dog would say. And I just lived in a house with one dog and one man. And that was all the interactions that I had at that time. So it was a good, was COVID a blessing? Oh, I don't think anyone will say that. And yet, what did we get out of it? What did we learn out of it? What came to us out of it? I think blessings come from what's put in front of you and then what you do with it,
1,000%.
I mean, was it a blessing that Christopher Reeve ended up in a wheelchair? Of course not. Of course not. Mm. And yet, what a profound life he lived. What he took out of what he got and what he gave.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael J. Fox too, Christina Applegate, Selma Blair, all of these people that are alchemizing their suffering and their experience and shining a light on how, like, it doesn't have to define us, and it can allow us for a deeper purpose and meaning into this shared human experience is just so beautiful.
Yeah, so I think that's part of the message of my book, and I hope a message that all these things, all the things we're talking about, we're not perfect at it. We're not good. I happen to be a Christian, but that isn't really meaningful. Except that if Jesus is interesting to you as a character, he certainly makes a good character in a lot of movies. He, didn't that he had a bad day and he threw stuff around the temple and had a big hissy fit and like all this bad behavior. Like everybody, we're not perfect. And
No.
the Dalai Lama will have an off day, and everybody, the Pope gets upset. Like I just think that it when you say something as simple as "be here now," sure, that's great advice. Put it on a coffee mug and try to remember it. But you're gonna mess it up. You're gonna miss the point every day, and then if you have a practice, if part of your life is to have any kind of a spiritual practice, it's like, oops. Maybe the most spiritual song is Britney Spears. Oops, I did it again. That's the nature of life. Who knew that Britney Spears was a spiritual teacher? But she is if you let her be.
Oh, she's my guru for sure. So I love that we just had a Britney Spears reference in this episode.
Yeah, but I'm saying we think like, oh, if I want something spiritual, I should buy Cathryn's book. I mean, you should, but it's like it's everywhere for you. The lessons and the gems, the jewels are everywhere if you're willing to see them. And somebody like Selma Blair, somebody like Christopher Reeve, take what happens and turn it into something better.
Yeah. Well, beautiful. Well, I'm mindful of the time, so we're going to wrap it up here, but I want to give you some space to tell everybody like where they can get your book, what you're working on in the future, anything that's going on in your social network in the next month or 6 weeks or so. And then when this episode's out, they'll be able to go to all those places and find you.
Well, we have more movies coming. I'm not allowed to say anything about them yet. Between COVID and 2 strikes, that put a bit of a pause in our filmmaking, but we're back and we're working on various movie projects with different studios. And I'm still here. A Dog's Purpose Forever can be found anywhere that good books are sold. And I think it is the perfect gift to give yourself if you have a dog or you've lost a dog. And it is certainly the perfect gift to give anyone who has lost a dog. And I'm so proud that my publisher, Andrews McNeil, made such a high quality book. It's printed on watercolor paper. The paintings are so beautiful, and it's rich to the touch, and it has rose gold embossing on the cover. And I just really wanted it to be a beautiful gift book. But every publisher I went to was like, "Oh, let's make a $50 coffee table book." And I'm like, "No, that's not what people need." People need something that costs less than a flower arrangement that they can give their friend or that they can give to themselves when they're having that process of losing a dog. And so, you can go to A Dog's Purpose on Facebook or Instagram. We're there all the time having this conversation. We want to talk to people about the process of having a dog, and a lot of people come on there and talk about how they have a new dog that they feel was sent to them by their angel dog, and how that magical process happened, and how they know that their angel dog wanted them to have this new dog. And so it's a really if you come to our social media, A Dog's Purpose on Instagram or Facebook or Threads or Twitter, whatever, not Twitter so much anymore.
Whatever, yeah.
It's not even called Twitter, so we're not really there that much. But know that it's going to be an uplifting conversation, the conversation we want to have with you about these topics, about the whole world of a dog's purpose, is an uplifting, life-affirming, dog-loving conversation. That's what we're doing with the original A Dog's Purpose book, with our films, with I'm Still Here, A Dog's Purpose Forever. We just want it to be that beautiful conversation about how these animals enrich our lives, and if we let them be, will be our spiritual teachers. They'll teach you a lot.
Yes, they will. Yeah, and thank you for your intention with the cost perspective there. I think that's really beautiful, and I love that you made that attention to detail for everybody, because you're right, like people need it to be accessible. And so I definitely thank you now for that. That's really wonderful. So we always wrap up with gratitude, and I always check in with my guests what 3 things they're grateful for in this moment, this week, this year, sort of anything that's rolling around in your heart center before we wrap up.
Oh, I'm so grateful for my husband. I'm so grateful to have a relationship with someone who loves me, but who works with me. It's weird because when you work at home, you sleep at the office, and is good at helping to separate the work life from the home life and the love life. And it's really a balancing act, and I'm so grateful to have a partner who does that. I am beyond grateful for this one.
Fast asleep.
Just, I'm sure he's designing buildings, or he's doing something marvelous. He's developing a new vaccine. He's doing something, I was grateful for Ellie, and I'm grateful for Tucker. I put them in the same basket because I'm only getting 3 things to be grateful, and I have so much to be grateful for. And then in the end, I'm grateful for community. I'm grateful for all of the ways that we can come together. This has been a beautiful conversation. I can't believe it's been an hour. It doesn't feel like it, because we've been talking about things that matter so much to me, and we've never met before. But how don't we live in the best time where I could just sit in my living room and talk to you and connect with the people who listen to you? And that's amazing.
Exactly. Well, or that I watched your movie, like, I don't know, 2 years ago, maybe, and that I'm sitting here with you now. I mean, I didn't ever think that would happen. So it's the synchronicity and the sweetness of life is never lost on me either. So I love that you ended with that.
We're so blessed. These connections that kept us going in COVID, the fact that my little device could send a beam up to space, to a satellite, with my face and my talking talk, and coming down to your beautiful face and your talky talk, and like how could that even be imagined? And yet we do it all the time, and I'm so grateful for it, because it connects us. We are connected, even when we're not on Zoom or whatever platform we're on, but this reminds us how connected we are. And so I'm grateful for community. Community would be the third thing.
Beautiful. We'll have to leave it there. I so appreciate you, Cathryn, for coming here to do this with me. We'll link your book, the movies, your YouTube page, all the things in the show notes. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be here today. It's an honor to have you and your work on here, and I really enjoyed our conversation as well, and wishing you lots and lots of success in the future.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
This podcast was written, directed, and produced by me, your host, Chris Iziomata, in alignment with Light Casting. Music curated and created by Mr. Pixie. You can find I'm Awake Now What on all social media channels by searching IANW Podcast. Head over to your favorite podcast app and subscribe, download, rate, and review. Come back every Sunday to partake in a new and enlightening conversation. May you be filled with love and light until we meet again.